Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to our live stream. I'm so glad that you guys are here with us. Um, as Gary commented about 20 seconds ago, yes, I do think my mic is on. I'm looking at it. I'm seeing that it's working. I got it in front of me. Please comment if you guys have any issues or problems with this live stream. I can actually see all your comments and see all that stuff that's going on all of our different platforms. And just so glad that you guys are tuning in with us. This is great. So as you can see, I'm doing a little something different here. I'm going to be managing some of this stuff here for this morning. But so glad that you guys are with us. You know, we just did a watch party on social media. And I just kind of want to remind us of our point for this morning and our point for this gathering. And that's that we have a Father who gives us an unbelievable promise of provision and an overwhelming love that seeks our highest good. And our highest good is meeting our deepest need through the ultimate gift, the gift of Jesus. And so that's what we're kind of talking about today. That's what we're engaging with. Robert, so Jonathan says he's on. Jen says she's on. Dustin Woods says he's on. Hey, Dustin, good to see you, buddy. We were having a great conversation through this church online and also on Facebook as well. So I can tell you, so Robert is claiming that he has a belly button, but Gary said I can confirm that he does, as he has forced us to see it on a Zoom call. Okay, TMI, too much information. Gary has started a rumor that Robert does not have a belly button. And for those of you who don't know who Robert is a resident here with us at Redeeming Hope. But I'm so glad that you guys are on with us. Thank you so much. Comment your questions, send in your thoughts about what we talked about. And you know, one of the reasons why we do this, one of the reasons why we go live, is that we want to keep this level of engagement up that we've had that's made our church just a really sweet place. I really have loved the culture that we're building and the culture that we're shaping at Redeeming Hope, that we can ask questions, and people can ask questions and even disagree too. And so that's what I want. So as we talk, as we engage, if there's something that you don't agree with or something you're like, hey, I don't know if I agree with the presupposition that's underneath that thought, I just want you to encourage you to comment. Like I said, I can see you. And that's good. So a couple of questions for us to consider, and I'm just going to throw these on the chats that'll hit a bunch of different places, and I'll throw that again on the church online thing. Is how do you deal with unanswered prayer? Is it hard to believe that God loves you in the midst of physical pain, financial instability, or emotional, psychological challenges? And what have you wanted so badly, but in retrospect, you're glad that you didn't get it because it wouldn't have been the best thing for you? And so I just want to encourage us as we think through some of the ways that we put our identity into job or work or those kinds of things, where, you know, sometimes so often we can kind of get laser dialed in, laser focused, and to the extent that we think that if we don't get this thing, then our lives are over. And I just want to encourage us as we consider and talk together this morning that, you know, God wants to challenge that. He wants to challenge what we perceive that we need. And like I said in the message, like God gives us what we would have asked for if we knew what He knew. So just really want to challenge us there. And a couple of comments, both from when we were talking on the live stream and also from your feedback right now. But Jen had commented and said he gave us love, which is 100% true. And how interesting is it, Jen, too, that every time he talks about how he gave us Jesus and how he gave us his love, it always connects with how he gives us his life, which I thought was really, really fascinating. Sarah made a wonderful comment that I wanted to read as we kind of think through this. And she said, when I pray, I often ask for what I personally want and then ask for whatever is his will. I have to trust that he has the full picture and all things are for his good. My pain and suffering is fleeting in the long run. And that's a really amazing thing to remember, Sarah. Thank you for that. I believe God will give me what I need and have seen this in reality in really financially, emotionally unstable times in my own life. He will give what you need to get through it. It may not be the outcome you want or expect, though. And isn't that interesting, right? And Sarah, I just think those are some really good points that you make. Like, God will truly give us what we need, and he oftentimes gives us what we truly want. I think sometimes what we think we want is not always what we truly want, right? I think many of us will say, I want to grow spiritually, I want to grow as a follower of Jesus, I want to engage well, I want to reach my neighbors, but then what we want doesn't always coincide with the things that will get us to where we ultimately want to go, if that makes sense. So I just love that. And what you said, my pain and suffering is fleeting in the long run. And how amazing is it that God gives us that perspective. You know, Jonathan just commented here, and he said, there was a job that I wanted more than anything, and it really put me in a rut when I didn't get it. The next year when I was presented with another opportunity that I was far less qualified for, it was exactly where I needed to be for my family and just didn't know, but God did. And wow, Jonathan, again, thank you for that. That's amazing. Like, how cool is it that that God will oftentimes protect us from making bad decisions. And it's kind of like, and I'm not saying this is you, Jonathan, but this is kind of sometimes how I feel about me is like, I'm the 3-year-old that wants to play in the street, right? And mom and dad are like, don't play in the street, you're gonna get hit. And especially because I'm a redhead, people's cars might pull a little bit over, ugly redheaded stepchild syndrome, right? And so like this idea of their love for me seems limiting in the moment, but it's ultimately for my good. And so, and Jonathan, we've talked about this before, but like the job is actually job applications are one of the easiest ways to trust God. Because you do your part, right? Like you fill out the application, you get your resume straight, you put it in there, but then you have no more control over the process. So it's like totally in God's hands. If he wants you to have the job, he'll get it to you. And if he doesn't, he won't. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, man. And thank you for that transparency. Jen said, sometimes we need to, as the country song says, sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers. Remember when you're talking to the man upstairs, that just because he doesn't answer doesn't mean he doesn't care, because some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. And I think, Jen, that's good. And I would say, too, that maybe, it's just like how I think about it is like a parent, right? Because that's the analogy in the text was that of a parent. And I think that, if you have a parent that doesn't answer you when you talk to them, I think that could be perceived as unloving. But maybe a better way to think about it, or a different way to think about it, is that we have a God that always answers us, just maybe not in the ways that we want him to. So I think that's kind of the heart of that country song, right? Like maybe not just necessarily unanswered prayers, but the prayers that we would want him to say yes to, and he actually says no to. And that's something that Gary said on the other live stream. He said, I do my best to remember what I remind my children. God will answer all prayers. The answers are yes, no, and grow. And I think that that's a really interesting way to put it, like yes, no, or grow through it. And, I think that we have a Father that truly loves us, and he truly engages with us. He invites us into relationship, and he doesn't withhold his communication from us. But what he does sometimes is he doesn't give us what we want, right? Because he ultimately knows what we need. So I think that's really good. Robert had asked a question here, or in the comments of the video. Why didn't God fully and immediately defeat sin and its effects at the resurrection? You can tell who's in seminary right now, right? So why didn't God fully and immediately defeat sin and its effects at the resurrection? And I'm going to give you the short answer, and I'm going to give you the long answer. The short answer is I don't know. I don't know why I didn't do it. In my mind, how I would think about the world is that Jesus died, he defeated sin and death, the power of sin and death, and then nobody has to suffer anymore, and then we all go to heaven, right? But there is some beauty in, so the short answer is I don't know. The longer, more nuanced answer is that there is some beauty in the struggle. There's something that God teaches us. And maybe there's some things about the nature and the character of God that we could only learn in the midst of difficulty, pain, struggle, right? Like I know for me, the times of growth, the times where I have felt the presence of God in my life, the times where I've felt the love of God, the delight of God over me, have oftentimes been in difficulty, pain, after tragedy, after loss, is where I sometimes feel like God is the closest. There's an interesting, I think I might have talked about this before, but there's an interesting, uh, I think it's Japanese culture, and I think I probably brought this up before. It's called kintsukuri, and it's this idea like if you break a plate or if you break a bowl, like normal household items, right? If you break it, you could give it to an artist, and an artist would put it back together and use the adhesive to put them back together as like gold and silver, and then it becomes an art piece, right? So if you were to break a glass in 10 pieces and he puts it back together, you would see all these outlines of gold and silver kind of looking like stained glass to put it back together. And then you wouldn't use it, but you would display it. And it's this type of art called kintsukuri. And it's the idea that something is more beautiful after it's been broken. And this idea of redemption. And of course, that's near and dear to my heart. It's near and dear to our church's heart. That's the name of our church, right? And I think that there's something there, Robert. So the short answer is I don't know. The long answer is I think that God does something in the midst of this brokenness to teach us, to show us about who he is, to love us, to draw us deeper into himself, that it could not have been accomplished except for the fact that the world is still broken and he fixes it. Let's see. Jonathan, Gary had responded to Robert's thing a little bit ago and said, I think he doesn't immediately defeat sin because it would have undermined his original gift to us, free will. And actually, I think that's a really good point. Like, it would have probably undermined that because God wants to give us a choice, right? And I've said this before, and this is not trying to be a pat answer. So if you have issues with this, please comment and we can dialogue about it. But this idea that the reason why we have a choice, the reason why I have free will, is that there can be no true love without the option of choice, right? Like you have to choose to love someone. And where I think that this now is like God gives us a choice to choose a pathway that he doesn't want us as automatrons. He doesn't want us just blind robots following him. He wants a relationship. And in order for a relationship to be present, there's got to be choice. And so there's a part of that there. So I think that's kind of interesting. Gary, it's an interesting point. But yes, I do think that God is still giving us a choice here. And then Rachel asked, do you think that some of us would never see our need for Jesus if the world was made perfect as soon as Jesus was raised from the dead? Actually, that's a great point, Rachel. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I think that that's part of it, right? And I think that's actually part of the gospel. I think that's part of the good news of Jesus, that he meets our deep need with his grace, that our highest good is meeting our deepest need through the ultimate provision, the provision of Christ. And, there's something beautiful in my walk with Jesus, and as Rachel and I have been growing in the gospel over the past 10 years of our relationship and in our marriage, and as we've been in ministry, like there's something about need that keeps pulling Rachel and I in. Like this idea of I need to see myself in need so that I can see Jesus for who Jesus is. Because Jesus was sent to meet a need. Like Jesus was incarnated into the world, not because the world was perfect, but he came into the world because the world was imperfect. And he had a mission. He had a mission from God. He was sent on a rescue mission. I mean, John 20:21 says, just as I have been sent, so send I you. So in the nature that we are sent with a mission to share the good news of Jesus with others. So Jesus was sent with a message of good news from his Father, right? And that's what we talked about even today, that the Father sent Jesus. The Father sends consistently his Holy Spirit into our lives. But we might not be able to understand God and God's grace to us if we don't see that we have a need for Jesus. So I think that there's something that connects need and provision that kind of coalesces together to cause us to fall more in love with God, And I think that that's beautiful. But that's also, let me also make a side note here. That's also challenging to believe. Like, let's just be straight up. Like, that is a challenge because that means that there's brokenness and suffering in the world and God is using it to work something greater and deeper in us. But there's a lot of suffering and a lot of pain in the world. And so we have some agnostic and atheist friends that would say, how in the world could you follow a God that seems masochistic, right? Like he causes suffering in order to provide the provision for it. And I think that those are, while I don't agree with their conclusions, I think those are valid questions. So if you have friends that ask those questions, I would say honor them. Honor the friends that ask those questions because those questions are hard and the tension is real and it's not easily resolved with a Bible verse. Drew said, oh, thanks for joining us, Drew. I think it's easy to forget that Christ also suffered and faced great hardships. I've been guilty of only turning to God during hardships or times of need. I think you're right. Drew, I think it's easy to forget that Christ suffered immensely for us. And I think that it's oftentimes during difficulties, as you said, what you're saying is right? During hardship, during times of need, that's when we are more inclined to turn to God. It's almost harder to turn to God when we have provision, right? When we have earthly provision. When we have maybe I should rephrase that, when we have the appearance of earthly provision. When we have the appearance that it's coming from us, it's harder to turn to God. And it's harder to rely on Him. It's harder to stay dialed in with God. And so that's why the importance of rhythm and habit in our relationship with Jesus is so important, right? So that's why when we talk and as we do our men's and ladies groups and we do small groups, I've said consistently that I don't expect that everybody reads the Bible every single day. I just think that's an unrealistic expectation. And I look at the scriptures, and Jesus didn't read the Bible every single day. There's some days where we can track an entire 24-hour period of Jesus' life in the Gospels. And he didn't have a moment to pray. He didn't have a moment to read the Bible. He didn't get away for hours in this kind of high piety. He was in ministry rolling up his shirt sleeves for days on end. But it says, the scriptures always say, as was his custom, as was his rhythm. Jesus consistently went away to pray and spend time with his Father, as was his custom when he was in a town that had a synagogue on a Sunday or Saturday, on the Sabbath. He would go and read the scriptures and engage and teach and do those things, right? So I think it's important for us not to be legalistic. But Drew, to your point, I really, really believe that when we are in the good times, it's still really good to have those habits, right? So consistently being in the Word, consistently being in a group, right? And what Rachel and I have talked about too is that, you form your deeper friendships in the times of calm in your life. Like when you have margin to talk and you have margin to connect with people, you build deeper relationships that when difficult times come, when you get fired from your job, when the instability comes financially, when sickness comes, when the test doesn't go as well as you think it does, then you reach out to those people. So I think too, the importance of building community in the midst of good times where you've got margin to hang out and you don't have a lot of pressure weighing you down, that forms deeper levels of friendship with people that you can then rely on. So I think it's deeper levels of connection with God through rhythms and consistency, and then deeper levels of relationship with others in community. And then what that does is that prepares you to access those hard times. Robert says, and based on what we believe, many, even most people, will suffer eternally. So that's a challenging thing that we have to wrestle with, Robert. Jesus talks more about hell than anybody else in Scripture. And I believe that there's a reason why we need to share the good news of Jesus, because I believe that there's an eternity that we can spend with God, or there's an eternity that we can spend apart from God, which is in suffering and pain. And that's a challenging thing for me, even, to be quite honest. Like, I have a hard time wrapping my brain around that. But C.S. Lewis has a good quote that I think is really helpful. He says, hell's gates are locked from the inside. And one of the reasons why that's really interesting to me is that it's this idea that what we choose in this life, God will honor in eternity. Like there's a reason why we don't just cease to exist. Like we are eternal beings because there's a certain dignity, there's a certain level of, in the image of God, we are made in the image of God as eternal beings, eternally going forward. Now, obviously, we're not eternal on the back end, in the past eternal, but we will live forever. And that is a challenging thing. But like I said, I do think that God honors the decisions that we make in this life and doesn't force himself onto us. Any other thoughts or feedback from you guys before we move forward? And again, I really appreciate your feedback. I know for me, so I'll wait just a few more minutes before we move forward to sharing some things. But I think for me, I always used to think that my relationship with God was transactional. God, look at all the things I'm doing for you. Why didn't you give me this one thing? And that's a deep level of pride in my heart that still is present. It still creeps in. It still wants to fight for a space in my soul. Because I always used to think like, God, look at all I've done for you. Why can't you just give me this? And what that does is that's an inaccurate view of myself, and that's an inaccurate view of God. Instead, and what I think that God has been leading me into, is to see that God has given me all of this. And God has given me an incredible amount of capacity to do things for him. And he loves me regardless of whether I do anything for him or not. And when God says no, it's hard for my heart to believe that is for my ultimate good. But the solution to that is looking to Jesus. The solution to that is looking that Jesus is the ultimate provision of my ultimate need. And when I can take a step back in my mind and see that my ultimate need has been met with God's grace, that is immensely helpful when I don't get what I want in the moment. Because I can remember that I do have a Father that loves me. I am indwelt by the Holy Spirit, that God freely gives himself, his presence to me, and that he's ultimately resolved my ultimate needs on the cross. And when I have that in the forefront of, like frontal lobe, like forefront of my mind, guys, let me tell you, it really helps me when I don't get the things that I want to get. So that's kind of, that has really kind of helped me quite a bit. I want to invite us to do a few things. So actually, Rachel, will you do me a favor? Will you hand me that bag that's on the table? So we are doing this thing. I forgot to bring it over, but fortunately, Rachel's going to walk it over here in a sec. We're doing this thing that we've been working really hard on. Thank you, honey. And we're going to be handing these bags out this week. And this is, it's kind of cheesy. I have a cheesy name for it, but it's called the 321 Swag Bag Initiative. Okay? It's called the 321 Swag Bag Initiative. And I would have put a funny graphic below, but I didn't have time for it. So what we want to do is I want to give everybody in our church 3 of these bags. So what's in these bags are a roll of toilet paper, because toilet paper is in short supply, deck of playing cards so you can play stuff with your family, a little mini Rubik's Cube, couple of Redeeming Hope swag, like some pens. We got a little Redeeming Hope magnet, right? And then we've got a little one sheet about who we are, which I'm going to go over here in a sec. We've got some hand lotion. And then the most important thing, which I don't have in here, Rachel, could you hand me that? Just hand me a spray bottle. We will have thank you. We will have a spray bottle filled with hand sanitizer from Old Glory that'll actually, Katie's working on some stickers that'll have a Redeeming Hope sticker on it. And here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hand out 3 of these. I'm going to personally drive these to your house and leave them on your front porch. I'm going to give you 3 of them. And what I want you to do, if you're a part of our church, is I want you to give 2 of these away to your neighbors with a handwritten note. And I want you to keep 1 for you and your family. So keep some of the games for you and your family. And then I want you to keep one for your family, give away two, and I'm going to give you three total. And in this also is a little one sheet. It's a little half sheet that says like, hey, we're a new church in Clarksville. One of your neighbors has dropped this off at your door. We just wanted to bless you. And then on the back, it has ways that you can join us. Right, so the ways that your neighbors can join us, like it says Sunday 10 a.m. message, live Q&A. Monday we do a Zoom call every week. Wednesday we do a live Bible study on social media, and then we have all the different ways that they can find us online. So we got these ordered. It's been a lot of work to get all this stuff together, especially finding spray bottles here in Clarksville, because I think everybody's now like either making their own hand sanitizer using like Everclear, or they're going to Old Glory and getting like the liquid hand sanitizer. So everybody's been buying out the spray bottles. But thanks to Katie Leaf, she helped us find them. So we're going to put all this together. We're going to drop it off, 3 of these on your front porch. And you're going to get 3 bags. You're going to give 2 away to your neighbors. And then you're going to keep 1. And what I want to do is use this as an opportunity to reach people that you might not have already reached. So I'm going to put this up here. It's pretty legit. I love these bags. I'm kind of geeking out about them right now. But you're gonna get this dropped off, and I really want you to think and pray through who are 2 people that are your neighbors, that are your friends, that might not be connected with a church family, that we could just bless, that you could bless. This is an opportunity for you to bless somebody else without you doing virtually anything. All you have to do is handwrite a note, put it in a bag, drop it off at somebody's door, and we're going to do a lot of the work for you. We're going to do 50 of these bags to start with, and to be quite frank, I want to like blow this up even more, and I want us to be doing this more with people here in Clarksville, because in my mind, this is a wonderful, beautiful reset for Clarksville. This is a beautiful reset for the people that are in your life that haven't been connected socially with people, and this is an opportunity for us to love our neighbors and our friends. So Rachel said, thanks, Katie, for the hot tip on where to find spray bottles. It was awesome. Gary said, I couldn't make Everclear hand sanitizer as I would end up using it as mouth spray. That's awesome, Gary. You're the best, man. Jen said, I love the bag idea. I already have a list of people. Gary said, might want to do 51 since that's a multiple of 3. Gary, I went to seminary. I didn't go to math school. That's why they're spreadsheets, okay? Oh man, I love it. Get a list of people, and we're gonna make more. Okay, so this is like the first pilot. I actually like it enough, and our church received a little grant to do outreach during this time. So one of Rachel and I's personal supporters. I don't know if you guys know this. Some of you might be tuning in and you don't know, but I raise all of my missionary support. So the fact that I can devote my full-time energy to this church is because Rachel and I went to about 300 people in our lives, shared the vision to plant this church, and then people donate to us monthly so that I can have the time in my week to do all this. So we have one of our supporting organizations sent us a little grant. We didn't even apply for it to say this is for outreach. So we were already doing this bag initiative, but I only had the money for 50. Because we're a small church and we don't have that many funds. And so the fact that we got this little grant means that we can do more. And the fact that you guys have actually been really doing awesome with supporting us in terms of tithes and offerings. And I just want to say thank you. Please continue to give. Oh, look at that. I have a little thing here. Boom. There you go. If you'd like to give, if you'd like to join what we're doing financially, you can do that. It's all tax deductible. But really, you guys have been so faithful in supporting us that we've had a little bit of extra funds to start this, and then we got this grant. So I'm going to do my best to try to do that. Oh, my mother-in-law's on. Oh, hey, Trish. So good to see you. She's on Facebook. I love her. She's the best. 5 + 1 is 6. Fun fact. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. So here's some ways. So I want to talk through something that we're doing called Redeem the Quarantine. And what I want to talk about is 7 ways that we can redeem the quarantine here. There's so many amazing tools and resources out there, but I really want us as a church to use this quarantine time to really engage with God and each other. So a couple of things to just consider and pray for. The first one is, as we seek to redeem the quarantine, is I want you to be honest about where you're at. Like, we as a church, we don't want to just be fake and false and phony, and we don't put on the churchy face, right? And so if you're struggling, if you've got fear, if you've got difficulty, like, be honest about it. Be honest in group, be honest in where God has you and where you're struggling and the things that you need to work through. We're working through all that together as a church. So I want you to be honest about where you're at. And if you've got fear, if you got concerns, if you're just tired of being cooped up, it's okay to acknowledge that. Second, I want you to encourage you to stay in the scriptures. Like, fill your mind with good things. Like, there's so many things that you can fill your mind with right now in the midst of this quarantine. And I want you to stay in the scriptures. And what we say is 15 minutes 3 times a week. It's just that simple. 15 minutes 3 times a week. And I believe that if we can stay in the scriptures consistently in a very reasonable way, that doesn't require you to put an hour every single day in, because you might not have that. The kids might wake up early, you might be exhausted at night. Just 15 minutes 3 times a week, I think, will do absolute wonders for your walk with Jesus. So stay in the scriptures. Third, don't placate with social media, Netflix, YouTube, those things. So none of that is wrong. As we talked about last week, Rachel and I did Lord of the Rings marathon a couple weeks ago. It was awesome. For Rachel's birthday, we watched Rachel's one of her favorite movies, The Secret Life of Pets. Okay, so she absolutely loves The Secret Life of Pets. She loves everything about it. There's Gidget, which is the one dog, and Max, that's the other one, right? And so I think for Christmas this past year, I gave her a little Gidget and a little Max, and she has it on her nightstand because she just loves this movie. Like, she's obsessed about dogs. And so so that's not a problem to do that stuff. We do it too. But don't placate. Don't watch how much you are on it. That's all I'm asking. Just be mindful that you're not distracting yourself from your true emotions. You're not distracting yourself from potential conflict with a spouse or your family or your kids by just kind of dialing into video games, social media, those things. Just be mindful of the time that you spend. Gary said, oh, that's funny. Jen, I got to push pause real quick. So Jen said, so Robert said, add the numbers together and you can find out if it's a multiple of 3. That's funny. Jen said, our resident is learning so much in seminary school, as y'all can tell. That's funny. That's great. Flynn loves both of the Secret Life of Pets movies. Jen said, do you want to know what the Secret Life of Pets is about? It's about the Secret Life of Pets. Robert said Josh was telling all my secrets. That's great. And then Jonathan said that's Eli's favorite movie. That's awesome. I love it. Hey, Eli. I miss hanging out with you and Benji. I love you guys. Jonathan and Christy are part of one of our groups that meet on Zoom on Sunday nights, and we've gotten into a little habit now of, at the end of the Zoom call, Eli and Benji will run in the room and we'll just make funny faces, and I just absolutely love them. I can't wait till we're back together and we can hang together and eat together again. And another thing that I want to encourage us with is rest. Guys, there might be a pendulum, right? So the pendulum could be, I'm working from home and you're having a really hard time getting motivated to just do anything, right? And that's kind of the pendulum of placating with social media and games and stuff, distraction. But then there's also another pendulum, which, if I'm honest, this is where I swing towards, is overworking and just not stopping, not trusting the Lord, and just work to the point where you're burning yourself out. So I want to encourage you to rest. Take a nap if you can. If you got a job where you can take a nap in the middle of the day, take a nap. Sleep in one day if you can. Just take some time and rest, and use this as a gift from the Lord. And then another one, so another way to redeem the quarantine is exercise. So just walking around can just help your body. I know it's really kind of rainy today in Clarksville. I don't know where it is where you guys are at, but just walking around can be really helpful. And just getting some vitamin D, getting some sun, getting out there. I know that we were doing Couch to 5K before this happened. I tried to maintain it. I haven't been the best at it, but just getting out there, walking, getting some sun, exercising, jogging, those things. I know Christy Allen, you are rocking it right now, not being able to go to the gym, but she still keeps posting. She's like my motivator, man. She's amazing. She's going out there doing jogs and doing runs and doing bike stuff, and I just absolutely love all of her initiatives, and thanks for putting that online. It helps motivate me. And then another thing is intentionally connect. So that's one of the reasons why we had the pack of playing cards. I just want you guys to connect with your family. Like, we always keep talking about it's hard to find time, right? Well, here's the deal. We got time now, and we will have time in the near future. And so connect with your family this week. Like, Rachel and I had to go to Walmart for a few things, and we have some board games, but they're really packed away. It would take us quite a long time to find them. So we ended up buying like Monopoly and Battleship, and we've been playing vicious games of Rummy. I think I mentioned that last week. So we've got some vicious games of Rummy going right now. What was that? Rachel said it has not been vicious, and it's been fun. It's been exciting. I like to think it's been vicious, but it hasn't. But we're playing up to a really high score, so we have these games that go for like weeks on end, and it's just been fun, guys. So just enjoy it. I've seen a lot of you baking stuff. Unbelievable! I baked these no flour peanut butter banana muffins with chocolate chips in them, and they're actually good for the diet that I'm on, and it was amazing. So they're flourless, no flour, no gluten, peanut butter, banana, chocolate chip muffins. So it was amazing. And then finally, serve. I just want you guys to serve. So this is using these bag things are going to be a way to serve your neighbors. Get an excuse to get your neighbors' phone numbers. Get an excuse to get with them. Gary said he's making fresh bread today. That's awesome. I've been seeing Gary's posts. He's been crushing it with the bread. Hey, not only was Gary doing pancakes when we were live at the Y, but now, Gary, you got to add some bread to it when we come back together, man. So, so I just really want to encourage you to serve your neighbors. Like, serve them, call them, ask them how they're doing, seek ways that you can contribute. So here's some ways that you can connect with us this week. Jen, let me see this. This is interesting. Jen said, for years, my mom and I have been working on playing Rummy to 1 million points. Rachel, did you catch that? 1 million points. That's nuts. We aren't there yet, but I'm crushing her. That's great. That's awesome, Jen. I think and of course, Jen is really, for those of you who don't know, Jen is Robert's wife, and she is, one of the things I love about her is she's so competitive. And when you get Jen in a game, man, she just comes alive. So I just love the fact that you're doing that. I just think that's amazing. Yeah, Rachel just said Josh and I only go to 1,000. Yeah, so we only go to 1,000. But I just think that you guys are awesome. So here's some ways you can connect with us this week. So if you're joining in and you don't have a church family, I want to meet with you. So we can still meet. I'm still meeting with people on my front porch, distanced. One person sits on one side of the porch, I sit on the other. We sit outside. We have coffee together. I'll bring coffee out, and we can meet. But I'm really using Zoom for a lot of my personal meetings. So if you're new and you want to connect, if you got questions about God, faith, or Jesus, let's talk. Let's meet up in a Zoom call. Secondly, there's another way you can connect. You can join a group. All of our groups are online. We're a small enough church. We made the pivot pretty quick, so it's not a big deal. It really wasn't a big deal for us. So what I want you to do is join us in a group online where we read the Bible consistently, we pray consistently. Next, I want you to engage with us on social media. This is a huge opportunity to help your friends get connected in with a church that might not go to church. Share. It's so simple, guys. Like, hit the share on Facebook, and you will be able to push our content out to tons of people. So we would absolutely love that. And then finally, you can continue to give, continue to support what God is doing. And like I said, again, you guys have been so faithful to do that. So this week, you're going to get these swag bags this week. So we were really struggling to find a few of the things, but like I said, Katie's on it. Katie was super helpful. Jason's been super helpful. Rachel went and got some stuff yesterday. We had a graphic designer help us with that half sheet. So we're good to go. So you're going to get these swag bags this week. So 3-2-1 swag bag initiative. I know it's cheesy, but I like it, so we're doing it. So do that. Tomorrow night, we got a prayer call. Wednesday at 3, we go live. We do groups through Zoom, and you can text us. And our number is 931-326-4512. 931-326-4512. And guess what I have? boom, 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 in the corner. Text us to connect. So you guys can do that. Jen said, mint chocolate chip cupcakes. Gary said, we will bake swap. We will take your bread. I will give you ... Oh, no, that was Jen responding to Gary. Jen and Gary were going to do a bake swap. So Gary can do some bread and Jen can do those mint chocolate chip cupcakes that were legit. Jen is on it. So love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us and for being a part of this. We love you. I miss being in person, but to be quite honest, like, it's okay. Like, it's all right. Like, where God has us, what God has us doing right now is okay. And I think we're growing as a church. I think we're growing in relationship, connection, involvement. And I just want to encourage you to continue to stay dialed in with Jesus, continue to stay dialed in with our church. And I think God's going to do some amazing things with us. So I love you. I love you guys. I miss you. And let's continue to follow Jesus together as a family of faith. And as we end, I just want to give you an encouragement from the scriptures. Now may our Lord Jesus Christ himself and God our Father, who loved us and gave us eternal comfort and good hope through grace, comfort your hearts and establish them in every good work and word. Redeeming Hope, we send you. In the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of the quarantine, we send you as missionaries into Clarksville to follow Jesus and to help others find him. Peace be with you.